Tanse, I'm Chris Nashkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. On the second day of the conclave in Vatican City, the next leader of the Catholic Church has been chosen. White smoke just recently billowed from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel today. The white smoke signals the 133 cardinals have elected a pope to replace the late Pope Francis, and he has accepted the papacy. The new pope will soon make a public appearance and deliver a blessing and his first speech. The cardinals have been sequestered without cell phones since Wednesday. 2 days after a press conference was held by families calling for more to be done into the deaths of 2 women and a girl in BC, the province's chief coroner has now announced an inquest into the death of one of the women. 20-year-old Tatiana Harrison, who was found on a dry docked yacht in Richmond, BC in 2022, will now be getting an inquest into her death after an outside pathologist disagreed with the 2 initial findings of the coroner's report that said she died of a fentanyl overdose and later changed that to death by sepsis. On National Red Dress Day, Natasha, the mother of Tatiana, were joined by the aunt of 13-year-old Noelle O'Soup and the mother of 24-year-old Chelsea Poorman. All 3 families, along with their lawyer, Sue Brown, and supported by the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, wrote a letter requesting this inquest. Here's what Natasha had to say about this newest development.
I am excited. The best way to describe it is I'm very confused because I'm excited for something so tragic. I think it's going to take a bit of time. Like, I had some tears this morning. I think yesterday I was very elated. I hope that it'll get inquests into Noelle O'Soup and Chelsea Poorman. But I hope that we find out what happened to Tatiana. I hope that it opens the door for transparency.
A case involving the chief of Carry the Kettle, the Nakota Nation, was back in court earlier this week. Appearing by phone, defense for Chief Scott Ashapi requested to have the matter moved to next month, and they're still waiting for disclosure from the prosecution. Ashapi faces charges of fraud and theft over $5,000, money laundering, and breach of trust. Some concerned band members were in attendance at court, with one saying that the delays are frustrating.
He is currently still in that role, but he wasn't supposed to be around finances at all because of the seriousness of the charges. It's very concerning because of the amount of division it's causing in our community.
Scott Ashapi's next court appearance will be on June 3rd. Now to the East Coast, where an Indigenous group in New Brunswick is hoping to boost the salmon population in the Miramichi River. CTV's Derek Haggett reports.
For thousands of years, the Mi'kmaq in New Brunswick have relied on salmon to sustain themselves. But that's very much in jeopardy. The population in the Miramichi River has shrunk around 75% since 2022.
There's only about 5,000 between both sides of the river compared to a few years ago when there was 20,000.
There's a history and a culture here that if it was lost, it would be just a real tragedy.
The cause? Warmer waters and predators, namely the striped bass.
My grandfather was a kid in the 1940s. You could catch salmon by the hundreds, really. You could go out fishing for one day and feed the family for literally almost the entire summer. Nowadays, you're lucky to go out and catch one fish a summer.
The North Shore Mi'kmaq Tribal Council say in order to avoid a collapse of the species, they need long-term support and a shared decision-making process with the federal government. Last month, the council submitted an Indigenous-led 5-year plan to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. They're asking for a budget of $38 million for operations and conservation projects. Projects underway now include wheels that gather smolts or young salmon and transport them upriver, bypassing predators.
So we haven't had that kind of investment for Atlantic salmon on the East Coast. So in order for this plan to work, we're going to need DFO to support it and to also fund it.
We're looking for funding from DFO, but we're also looking for collaboration.
DFO says they've received a copy of the plan, and the department will continue discussions with the Indigenous Council and its collaborators. Derek Haggett, CTV News, Weyerton, New Brunswick.
We have more stories from Thunder Bay and near Cambridge, Ontario coming up after the break. Plus, here's a preview of what our Sav Jonesa is working on.
I'm at the Wasagamine Campground at Riding Mountain National Park doing a story on Indigenous tourism within Manitoba. What does that look like after U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff war against Canada?
We've been going off and discovering the world, but I think we're in an era and a time that we just need to go in our own backyard, and we're going to see how great and beautiful of a country we have.
I'll have that story to you later this week on APTN National News.
Welcome back. For more than 20 years, the underground gym in Thunder Bay, Ontario has been teaching youth how to box. Throughout its existence, the gym has transformed into a full-service youth center dedicated to promoting fitness, healthy lifestyles, self-confidence, and self-respect. APTN's Mike McDonald reports.
This is Aubrey. This is Isla, who does not want to show her face.
For the Underground Gym and Youth Center and its founder, Peter Panetta, Monday nights are all about the children.
I love them. I've always, my whole life, worked with children, and I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue to do that until my last breath.
Arts and crafts are happening in one area while hair care is offered in another. 10-year-old Isla is getting her hair done, a service offered by a center volunteer. She likes going to the center and spending time with her friend Peter.
He's fun, and I gave him a nickname.
Okay, what's his nickname?
Old Lady.
Old Lady?
When I say Peter, he doesn't listen, and when I yell Old Lady, he listens to me.
On days like this, Peter Panetta is the kindly, fatherly figure.
I'm the donkey.
But on Tuesday nights...
Harder! Go, Brooklyn! Get those hands up! Go! Move the bags!
He returns to the activity that gave birth to the underground. Since 1993, Panetta's been coaching boxers. On this day, he's getting his best fighters ready for competition. One of them is Christian Sutherland, who had a very simple reason for getting involved in the sport.
Oh man, if I'm being honest, I would say to be in shape. You know what I'm saying? I was like about 16, I was out of shape. I wasn't feeling good about myself. I wasn't confident. And I tried this thing out. It was working. I saw the transformation. And I was like, I'm gonna keep going.
Put everything into the last round. Come on, put everything into it.
These workouts here, you know, gives you an opportunity to regulate your emotions and like a positive output, you know, rather than suppressing it and it coming out in negative ways. But at the same time, you can't use the training to go out in the street and use it in a bad way, I guess. But as long as you got a good a coach like Peter, you'll be doing good. Yeah.
For Brooklyn Fox of Mishkigogaming First Nation, boxing is a means of adding to her fighting skills.
Yeah, I'm very much into martial arts more than team sports. I like to watch Muay Thai and all these other martial arts that interest me, and that's what keeps me going to do boxing too. Brooklyn, along with other boxers at the gym, has helped Panetta bring the sport to other Northern Ontario communities. I went to Fort Reserve, which was Bearskin, Niskandaga, and Fort Hope, and my own reserve. And it was really fun. I really enjoyed getting to know the youth up there. It was nice seeing like the potential some of them had, and overall it helps my communication skills. Panetta, who often talks about his own tough youth, works his fighters hard.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm brutal, but life is even more harder than me. So if they can take it from me, they can take it out anywhere. It doesn't matter. You see them struggling, and you see them huffing and puffing and struggling, but they persevere. They keep going. So what does that tell you? They're going to do the same no matter where they go. Ideally, what I'd love is to have all of the Northern Reses with boxing clubs connected, and then they can compete against each other with a tournament, or at the very least, if there's competitive fighters, they can come down to Thunder Bay and join my fighters, and off we go to competitions wherever we go.
Panetta says he would like to see the underground gym and youth center model, which in addition to boxing includes art and music lessons, to also be adopted by First Nations communities across Northern Ontario. Mike McDonald, APTN National News, Thunder Bay.
The Winnipeg Jets began their second round of Stanley Cup playoffs at home on Wednesday night against the Dallas Stars. Unfortunately, the team lost to Dallas 3-2 last night. Despite that, a local First Nation company is now getting in on the Winnipeg Jets' current success and are helping the Jets paint the streets white. APTN's Veronica Blackhawk has that story for us.
Well, this was a big deal for us because it's not only is it big for the community, but it's big for me as an individual. I'm a super big Jets fan, right? So when I started my company 12 years ago, this was one of my dreams, to print for the Jets. And I thought it was a dream that I would always chase, but now it's a dream come true.
Michelle Cameron is the founder of Dreamcatcher Promotions. If you've ever wondered who fulfills the swarms of towels, tees, and garments adorned by thousands of Jets fans each game, then look to the Indigenous-owned and operated promotions company. Michelle's been working with the Winnipeg Jets for 2 years, and with the recent victories, business has been booming.
Now that we're in round 2, like our timelines are still pretty tight because every game that we win, it advances us further. So we're always chasing towels, right? So that was one big piece. And then we fit in the apparel in between the towels. So for us, it's like a revolving door. It's like we're constantly on the go and we're still doing 12 to 18-hour days.
It's a partnership that's extremely beneficial for the company, one that extends far beyond game night.
It gives us a leg up in a sense because now we can showcase what we're capable of and the capacity that we can do. We're one of the largest printers here in Manitoba, so we can print out 8,000 to 9,000 units in a day. So it's helping our company grow. Like we're getting a lot of new accounts that we might not have had before, just because they're accounts that require high volume. So they know now we have the capacity to do that.
It's a game that brings communities together and provides economic support to Indigenous creatives, proving that a win for the Jets is a win for the community.
Well, just the Jets alone keeps 8 of our staff steady, and then we're having to bring casual people to fill evening shifts and day shifts, and it's more than just printing a shirt. There's so many hands that this order has to touch.
Veronica Blackhawk, APTN National News.
Indigenous youth from across Canada have recently gathered in an area just south of Cambridge over in Brant County in Ontario this week for a celebration of history, culture and dance as they prepare an important event later this month. CTV's Ashley Bacon had a chance to meet some of the teens taking part in the Outside Looking In's 18th annual showcase.
Stepping into the spotlight.
It showed me the path of the arts, so theaters, performing, music in general.
Sheldon Harper joined Outside Looking in grade 7 and now is the program's sound engineer who mixed the music for this year's showcase.
I learned how to produce, mix, master, be an engineer, do all the technical side of music. And so after that year, I applied to work at OLI again, and instantly they told me to They hired me, and I got to work on everything they have done, and I'm technically achieving my goals so far.
The 18th annual OLI Showcase brings 100 Indigenous students from 14 remote fly-in communities to Southern Ontario to perform. Winona Chavis is from Northern Manitoba.
It was very overwhelming. It was my first time seeing a big city and being around so much people. But I'm glad I did it.
The program combines academics and dance.
They're getting credit for it every year through high school. They put in 110 hours through the school year to get that credit. And it's a combination of education, academics, and dance.
The goal is keeping kids in school until graduation.
The dropout rates are even higher in the more remote communities. So this program was really started to be that motivator, because who doesn't want to go to school and dance, right?
1, 2, 10, up. Combining traditional Indigenous dancing with hip-hop to create a fusion of cultures.
You can learn a lot, and you can learn about yourself, and you can also raise your confidence and your communication skills.
The impact of dance can be life-changing.
I started crying because that actually taught me a lot, that if I were to keep trying and going, I'd succeed no matter what.
Now, all this hard work isn't for nothing. Rehearsals will continue for the next few days, with the final showcase taking place in Toronto next week. Ashley Bacon, CTV News, Brant.
We now want to tell you about this week's web poll question. On our website, we ask, do you feel you're properly prepared to deal with the upcoming flood and wildfire season? Your answers are yes, no, or unsure. You can go to our website at aptnnews.ca/polls to cast your ballot. We have more news after the break. Stay with us. To the east, Charlottetown 16, sunny in Halifax at 13. 3 in the Grand River, Anujiwak -3. Saint Jovite 7, Quebec City 8. Toronto 8, Ottawa 8. 3 in Sudbury, Sioux Lookout 7. 16 in God's Lake, Puckatawagan 14. 14 in Winnipeg, Dauphin 21. Swift Current 17, Yorkton 18. 7 in Stony Rapids, Buffalo Narrows 9 and partly cloudy. Rain in Grand Prairie at 15, Peace River 17. 18 in Calgary, Red Deer 16. 13 in Tofino, Penticton 20. Prince Rupert 10, Smithers 12. Old Crow 0, Dawson, rain and 12. Yellowknife 5, Wrigley 4. Sax Harbor -10, Colville Lake -7. Chesterfield -8, Whale Cove -9. And Iqaluit Iqaluit 2, Clyde River -6. Every Thursday, we bring you our weekly In Focus podcast to discuss in depth the current stories making headlines across the country. Our host, Sierra Bettens, is on vacation, and our national affairs correspondent, Karen Pugliese, is stepping up to the mic for this week's episode. She sat down with our Kenneth Jackson to speak about the latest developments of 2 Mohawk men who drowned 10 years ago in the Bay of Quinte, and their deaths were ruled accidental. Take a listen, and we'll chat with Karen about the podcast right after this.
You're seeing more and more people come forward now with information, because now they're not alone. It's not, they don't have to, I think for all this time, they're like, well, I know something, but it's just me. Do I really want to be the person to be like, all this hangs on? Like, I have to be the one to like prove they didn't do it. Now that we've proven what we've proven, more people are coming forward because they're just piling on now, and they're safe. There's safety in numbers. And like I said, this close, like a inch away from, like one call away from proving it was first-degree murder because it was premeditated.
Karen, thanks so much for joining us. My first question is, what can you tell us about this week's episode of In Focus with APTN's Investigates Kenneth Jackson?
Well, I really wanted to talk to Kenneth Jackson about his piece that he'd done for Investigate Secrets of the Bay. And that particular 4-part series investigates the death of 2 Mohawk men. It was Matty Fairman and Tyler Maracle from Tyendinaga. Now, they were out in a boat fishing and they drowned. And police said that it was accidental, that the boat sunk. And, you know, the families never really believed it, but the police closed the case anyway. And so Kenneth stumbled across the story and started looking into it. And he felt that there was something there. And essentially, you know, by the end of the story, he just proves that these deaths could not have happened the way the police said they could. I didn't just want to rehash the series that he did, although we do some of that. What I really wanted to talk to him about was what happened behind the scenes. You know, the stuff that, as we say, the tape that gets left on the cutting room floor. You know, Kenneth went out at one point and he took the boat back on the water, loaded it up with sandbags and a lot of weight, and tried to recreate the accident the way the police said it happened. And I was just wondering, how did you even think to do that? I wondered why he believed the families in the first place. And, you know, like a lot of times it's really hard to accept a death. So what was it about this, you know, these 2 men's deaths that to him seemed that there was something more to it? I also just want to talk to him about the way he built trust with the families and how the families reacted to all of this. You know, there's a point where he asked the families to sort of wire themselves when they were talking to police so he could hear those conversations. And when the coroner went down to talk to the families, they absolutely would not talk to the coroner unless Kenneth was there with cameras rolling. And that's something that just almost never happens. So these are the things that you don't see in the stories. It's the story behind the story. And when I was interviewing him, I was thinking of all the families out there with missing and murdered relatives who are told the deaths are accidental and don't believe them. And I really thought that kind of conversation could be helpful for them to understand what an investigative reporter does when they try to reopen a case themselves. Because Kenneth worked on this for 2 years, and he and I talked for about 45 minutes.
Wow, no, definitely lots of interesting info to talk about there. There has also been, Karen, more development on this case since Part 4 aired a couple of weeks ago. What happened there?
That's right. Well, now the coroner agrees with Kenneth that the deaths could not have happened the way the police said that they did. And the OPP commissioner has asked Toronto Police to reopen the investigation. And Kenneth just told me this morning that the Toronto Police Homicide Unit is now looking into the case.
Wow. And what's next for this case moving forward?
Well, the question is, if it wasn't an accident, then what happened, right? And so while the police are taking a look into that, Kenneth is going to keep with the families and find them answers. He's going to stay on the case. We heard a clip off the top where he said he thinks he's very close to finding out what happened. He does think it's foul play, but he's just a fact or two away from proving it. So he's going to stay on it.
Finally, Karen, how can people tune into the In Focus podcast and hear more?
Well, you can find it on the APTN website, or you can listen on Spotify, or do what I do. I always listen on iTunes. That's my favorite spot. It's up there now, so as soon as the show's over, people can go and take a listen.
That's great to hear. Karen, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Thanks, Creason.
It's Thursday, and that means Fraser Needham is joining us now from Ottawa to tell us what's ahead on Nation to Nation. Fraser?
Coming up after the evening news, Ontario Premier Doug Ford's Conservatives are trying to fast-track development around the Ring of Fire with the new omnibus bill. But one Northern NDP MPP says they need to consult with area First Nations before moving any further. Newly elected Prime Minister Mark Carney says he would like to speed up the evaluation process for oil and gas pipelines, while at the same time respecting Indigenous rights. Yukon University professor Ken Coates is here to talk to us about how it might all work. And APTN reporter Leanne Sanders is also here to give us some insight on First Nations' reaction to talk of a referendum on separation in Alberta. All this ahead on tonight's episode of Nation to Nation.
Thank you, Fraser. And that's your daytime newscast for this Thursday. Dennis Ward is back for your evening news in a few hours with a brand new segment of Truth in Politics. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hi miigwech masichol. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Same time, same place. Ekse.